I just want to welcome you guys on in. If you guys are watching online, thank you guys for watching. And just up front, if you miss any of this information, we're going to record this. We're going to share the video link out. It won't be a public YouTube video, but it'll be shareable by link. So if you have a link to the video, you'll be able to watch it. So, you guys, we ready to jump into this? Ready? Oh, okay. I see that, the sidebar over here. Board member and pastor's wife. Wow. All right. All right. Well, as you guys can see, that one popped up a little early. I didn't give a script of when it's going to pop up, but this is a capital campaign launch. So I'm going to share with you what has led us to this point and why we believe God has called us to this. As I've looked across the room this morning, I've struggled with my emotions. Yesterday, just to be completely honest, as I had the computer in front of me and I was finalizing the presentation and I was praying over all this stuff, I became so overwhelmed thinking about everything that God's been doing through this church. I wept in a way that I didn't know was possible, for good reasons and anxiety and fear about what's next. But God just kind of I felt God placing a vision in my heart and a plan for all of this. And as we've journeyed through this last 3.5 years, God has just been so faithful. And he's done so many different things in this church. As I think back to that first morning, the weeks leading up to, the days leading up to that first service on June 6th, 2021 at the Red Fez Shrine Club. Who was there that first Sunday? All right, we got a few of you guys here. I think back to that first week, and I think what I was feeling this week was very similar to the feelings that were leading up to that week. Anxiety and stress on a level that I had never quite comprehended. Fear of whether or not anybody would actually come, which I'm just going to be honest with you guys. You guys coming late every week makes me feel that fear every single Sunday. And I know I joke about it, but it's self-deprecating humor. Show up on time, man. You give your boy a heart attack every single Sunday. We had like 15 people for the first 2 songs. I laugh because it's funny. It's not funny. I had absolute fear that first Sunday. Would anybody actually show up? I had doubts of whether or not me being the pastor was the right decision. I had always been a pastor. I had always been told that I had the potential to be the pastor, but I never had been until the first Sunday as a church plant. And I got to tell you, that was the most terrifying morning of my life, wondering whether or not I was qualified to do this, whether or not anybody else might think I was qualified to do this. And after a couple of years of trying, I finally realized I wasn't anywhere close to being ready for it. But God has equipped us along the way, and God has given me people who can speak into my life and speak into this church in ways that have encouraged us to keep going. And I think as we consider all of the excitement about what happened after that first Sunday, I thought the nerves would settle in, but they didn't, right? So if just a little brief history of what's led Cultivate Church to this point. We met at the Red Fez Shrine Club on June 6, 2021 for our first Sunday morning service. The 3 Fridays before that, we met at Pastor Gail Montgomery's house in her driveway, then in her yard, and then we worshiped in Todd Little's backyard. And it was a lot of fun to get that stuff going. The nerves never settled after that. For the next 2 years, I would ask God what was next. We moved from Red Fez after about 9 months to the Giving Tree Daycare because they had more children's classrooms. We moved from the Giving Tree to Lake Point Academy, where we thought we were going to be forever. And February 23rd, 2023 is a day that I will forever remember. As the day that we got the final word that what we thought was going to be our forever home was no longer going to be our home. And we were told that we had to not only take our things out temporarily, but not go back into the building that we had planned on being in for a long time. And instead of the anxiety that I thought was going to subside, I had a whole new layer of fear and doubt. and question. And over the next 2 months, we walked through a season of uncertainty like I had never imagined. Some of you guys might have been there Saturday afternoons in the Lake Wiley Christian Assembly Youth Building. That was odd. 4 o'clock afternoon services were not fun. They were more fun than having Easter and Palm Sunday in a soccer field in 40-degree weather, though. Then we had service in the middle of Knowledge Perk, downtown Rock Hill coffee shop, with one room without a ceiling that we tried to tuck all the kids into as we did a sermon, and you can imagine how that went. There was a stretch there where we prayed and asked God, what is the plan for all of us in the midst of this here? And we spent 2 months looking for an answer and looking for a home and wondering what God would have for us. And Todd Little called me one day and he said, PZ, are you free right now? I got something I want to show you. We've got a building that I think we can find. And I said, all right, cool. I'll be to Lake Wiley in about 30 minutes. He said, you don't need to worry about that. It's down the road from your house on Saluda Street. And knowing what Saluda Street represented in Rock Hill made me a little nervous because our Lake Wiley folks like things a little bit prettier and more put together than Saluda Street in Rock Hill. And then we saw the building. And if you saw the building before we moved into it, you certainly did not want any part of coming to Saluda Street in Rock Hill because this building looked nothing like it does today. But God gave us a vision, and the moment we stepped in and saw it, Carr and Todd and I talked about what this building could look like and what it could represent. And Pam, you can go on to that next slide there. And over the last 18 months, what we've seen here is Cultivate Church has seen growth, averaging over 100 people every week, which is just mind-blowing, considering that last September, second Sunday in September of 2023, we had 25 total people in the building. 9 of them were Leiners. So you can imagine 16 people that weren't related to me being in one building was a shock. Was actually looking at the volunteer team this morning. We had more people volunteering this morning than we had attending our church last year. But this year alone, we've seen 16 people baptized. We've given out over 1,400 meals to the community around us, which just blows my mind. We provide clothes and shoes and necessities to our neighbors. We've got kids and youth programs that are going. The community around us no longer asks why we're here, but they ask if we can go other places that need more help in the community now. We used to show up and say we're here to help, and they'd say we don't want it, we don't need it. Now when somebody's in need in this community, they call us and they say, Pastor Zach, can Cultivate help with this? Heck, now we got people calling from not the city of Rock Hill asking, hey, can you come bring something to the mountains? Can you come bring something to this region? Can you help us with that? And what we've seen over this last year is that God has called us to move beyond what we are simply doing here on Sunday mornings, right? Sunday morning church has been great. You guys were here. Most of the people here this morning stayed, and that's impressive. But what we've seen here on Sunday mornings is that continually there are new faces and there are new families and there are new people that call this church home. And as we find the way to call this place a home for so many others, we are now faced with exciting but also scary possibilities. You know, Todd's going to go into a little bit more detail about this. But if you're not aware, businesses and buildings with commercial use in the city are given zoning requirements of how many people are allowed in that building. And I will just say it up front right now. If the fire marshal was to walk into this room of this building, we would probably get in some trouble. God's called us to do some big things and some bold things, and there was one point in the life of this church that we didn't know whether or not this building would be forever. We didn't know whether this church would be forever, but we're seeing growth in ways that give us hope that something bigger is on the horizon. And so I'm excited to share with you guys that the city has given us some requirements of what need to be done, and our team here has got a vision unlike anything else that I've seen as to what this church will look like. Not what it can look like, but I'm going to say it boldly, what our church will look like in the next year. Because I believe that as we continue to be faithful, God will provide not only resources to grow, but God will provide families to help us reach more families and maximize the impact that we're having in this city. So before we jump into the business part of things, I just want to pray with you guys that God would open our hearts and he would prepare us for this conversation. Father God, I thank you so much for who you are today. Lord, I thank you that because of your wisdom, we have been given far more than we could ever ask for or imagine. Lord, and that we can stand here as a church and step into things that we didn't think possible just 1 year ago. Father, I say that we stand here with an expectation and a belief that what we thought was impossible a year ago is going to be a turning point for what we see in the future, in the months and years to come. So I pray that as you guide this conversation, Lord, that you'll open our hearts. Lord, that you'll allow us to see what you would have for us in the midst of all of this. And Father, that you would give us hope and excitement for what this next season of ministry for Cultivate Church looks like. God, I pray that you bless these conversations. I pray that you allow us to ask the right questions when the time comes. And I pray that you allow us to speak with clarity and be precise with our words as we cast a vision that you have laid on our hearts. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. So I'm going to have Todd Little come on up here right now. Todd, it is your part, right? Okay, cool. Todd Little, give it up for Todd. Come on. Not only is Todd a fellow Eagles fan, that's how he got on this board in the first place. I didn't even know who he was. I'm just kidding. No, Todd is our treasurer. Actually, I want to recognize all of our board members because I do have people ask sometimes who our board is. Can you guys stand? So we've got Jen Cadwell. Yeah. Everybody's getting a round of applause. We got Susan Shepard and Carr Bennett. These guys are the brains of this operation, and I am merely a cog in the machine. But I'm going to let people far smarter than me share with you information that you need to know about this.
Now I know what it feels like to be important. This is kind of cool. Well, I had planned on introducing myself, but Zach did that, so I guess I don't have to go into that. I was one of the people that put my hand up that an OG cultivator from day one. Can you go to the next slide, or whoever's working the slides? Okay, so yeah, no secret. I think you guys all, anyone who was here at Baptism Sunday a couple of weeks ago, I mean, quite literally bursting at the seams. I mean, we were bringing chairs out of the back. We were standing room only. In no uncertain terms, we were not only violating our occupancy permit, but we legitimately need more space. We need space to continue to support the missions that we're doing here and the people that are coming. One of the cool things about this building when we found it, and it really was, I mean, it was you talk about a blessing straight from God. Like we were turning over every single rock we could find, looking for a building. Churches have such a unique need of how they're used and when they're used, and the rules for how you can use a church. We're under there's very specific requirements from the city and from the county for gathering places, and it's very hard to find. And any building owner, generally speaking, does not like to lease to churches. Any commercial building that's represented by any of the big name commercial real estate firms, they generally, as a policy, will not rent to churches, especially young churches. Young churches don't have a great track record. Many of them fail. And out of nowhere, this one popped up. It was a private person representing himself. He didn't have a big, national real estate firm overseeing their applications. And we talked to him about what we were hoping to do, and he got behind it. He supported us, and quite frankly, the terms of the lease that we put in place could not have been better. We're very fortunate and very blessed. But one of the cool things about this space when we saw it was, and I don't know anyone who was here before we've done these modifications who's seen this building. We've done a lot of work. I mean, it looked absolutely nothing like this when we moved in. What we saw, what was so exciting about it was we had this partition, like where we're in here right now, which is great. It served our purpose. But We have behind here equally, like the same amount of space that's here is also behind here. And we were blessed for, good couple of months where we had someone subleasing that space from us, and it helped us kind of get through some tougher financial times. But now, knowing that we need to expand, knowing that we have the city of Rock Hill maybe slightly discontent with our people, the number of people we have here, we got to use it, right? We have the space. We need, and I don't want to take credit. I'll show you some renderings here in a second. Zach put them together, but we have the ability to move this whole stage back and create a much bigger worship area, create a much, this looks beautiful, but an even better, more professional stage. We have an option to add, or we have a requirement to add bathrooms. 2 bathrooms for this size group with kids. There's a wait list sometimes, sign up. But our goal, what we want to do is, like Zach said, we want this to be something that we can support for years to come. And we want this building to be our home for years to come. Can you go to the next slide? All right, I don't know how well you guys can see that from the back, but what's up front is kind of, for the most part, what we have here today, with the exception of the bathrooms. We have that little kitchenette, if you guys see in there, that we don't really use for much. It's kind of wasted space, but because of the plumbing in there, it gives us the option to rather easily turn those into bathrooms that can be accessible from this side. So to get to the occupancy requirements we need 2 more bathrooms, so that's what you'll see here. I think, and Zach, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is intended to be like a formal sound booth? Oh, that's the kitchenette. Oh, hey now. All right. So we're going to put a small kitchenette here. I guess we won't do a formal sound booth on day one. It's probably out of budget. But the nice thing is, if you look at the outside of the building, there's a garage door here. What this lets us do is expand our capacity probably to the point where we can comfortably seat 200 to 250 people, which is amazing. And it gives us this whole little backspace that we can, for all of the mission work we're doing, all of the things where we're taking supplies and taking collections and feeding the neighborhood. We have a storage area with a garage door where we can get into and out of there easily. So for us to continue to do what we want to do, I think this is about as cool of a future use of this building as all credit to Zach, he put it together. But I'm excited about this, and when he shared it with us, I thought it was really, really beautiful and purposeful. Can you go to the next slide? Here's the part that hurts a little bit, and this is the sticker shock. I don't know how many of you have ever worked in, with any form of commercial real estate over the years, but prices to do improvements in a commercial property are a whole lot different than prices to do things in your home. Most of it requires design services from an engineer. Everything requires, the use of an architect to make sure everything meets the city requirements and county requirements. I don't know how many are here over the summer, but it gets a little toasty in this room. We have one very, very, very old HVAC unit that is quite literally limping along. We need new HVAC. We need more HVAC. If you look at these prices, we've thankfully been very blessed, and we've met a few contractors that, the first few prices we got were a lot more than this. We met some people that wanted to get behind us and help. And I feel like this budget, I don't want to say it's conservative. I do think there's some padding in here, but I think realistically, this is a budget that, if we're serious about making this building our home, this is what we're going to need to raise. This is what we can plan to spend. Can you go to the next slide, please? As treasurer, I'm probably Zach's least favorite board member. I'm the one that says no, early and often. But when we had this conversation, to me, the most important thing is that we're good stewards with God. I view this as God's money, right? It's coming out of our pockets, but it's not ours. This is God's money. We need to make sure we're good stewards of that money. And before we went down this path of saying, hey, we're going to spend $130,000 on a building we don't own, let's make sure there's not something else out there that could meet our needs where maybe we only need to spend $50,000. So we did. Professionally, one of the hats I wear, one of the things I do, I am a commercial real estate broker. I help people buy and sell properties like this and rent properties like this. We went back and scoured the area, and the blessing and curse of living in Charlotte is lots of people are moving here. Even in a down economy, rental prices are still going up for these properties. So when we look at the lease, the really, really amazing favorable lease we were able to get, right now, for all intents and purposes, our base rent is right around $4,000 a month. That doesn't include taxes and insurance, but call it $4,000 a month. Fast forward, from now to where we were when we signed the lease, there is absolutely nothing close to this that we could get for that price today. Most of these buildings, they're scarce. There's certainly a scarcity of supply, but most of these are renting in the $10 to $12 a square foot range, which you annualize that out, that looks almost $2,000-$3,000 more a month than we're paying today. And then knowing that, again, churches are very specific. Even if we found another building that was more appropriate, it's still going to cost something to turn it into what we need. So, not only, and we'll see our budget here shortly, not only from a budget perspective can we not really comfortably absorb an extra $3,000 a month, but we would still be in the same situation of needing to have a capital campaign to do building improvements, even if we found another building. So it didn't seem practical to look that direction. We'd explored looking to buy something. We have some generous folks, and that under the right circumstances, maybe we could have found a building to buy. And unfortunately, unless it's already a church campus, it's really hard to find something that we could buy where we're not, again, going to be right back in the same situation where we need to spend a bunch of money to make the building fit our purpose. And quite frankly, there are some really cool ones out there, but $1.5–2 million later that we can't afford, that didn't seem like a viable option. And then lastly, we did look at some format of lending for this. We're a young church. The commercial lending markets and even the residential lending markets right now aren't the best. Banks are extremely tight. Interest rates aren't good. But we wanted to explore it, and we did. We found, there are some lending institutions that will lend to churches, but really what we could qualify for is a fraction of what we need, and it didn't seem like a viable path. But the last bullet on here is an important one, and we put this on here last because I think it's kind of a forward-looking, really amazing benefit of what we were able to negotiate with our landlord. We have a 5-year lease, but there's a purchase option in the lease, and the purchase option is extremely favorable. As we look for this to be our permanent home, it's kind of cool to know if we go through this exercise and we build this into our dream space, that in 3.5 more years, when we're hopefully more financially sound, we're going to have an option to purchase this building, and instead of paying $4,000 a month in rent, pay $4,000 a month in a mortgage, but eventually we'll own it, one of these days, probably when I'm long and gone. But can you go to the next slide? All right, this is the boring slide, but it's something that, before Carr comes up here and talks about how we're going to go about raising these funds, I personally feel it's important that, we're transparent. We want you to know where the money that's coming in today is going. And I'll say that, I mean, I'm a small business owner. My wife's a small business owner. For a living, I look at other small business owners every single day. We're operating by every means of the definition on a shoestring budget. I personally, I'm floored and amazed by what this church is able to do with the funds that we have. And yes, I do need to tell Zach no from time to time for things we can't do, but man, are we doing some amazing stuff. And, you know, if you look down this list, I'm not going to go through it line by line. As we grow, so do our expenses. So does the cost of feeding people, the cost of support staff to help lead certain areas of the church. Up until this quarter of the year, we just revised this budget for Q4 this year. We were primarily operating from a slightly smaller, we had a $15,000 budget. Our average tithing month to month is somewhere right around $15,000. We decided to increase it going into Q4 because we're getting bigger. We need to spend more money. We need more staff. So we made some adjustments to it, but this gives you, you know, at least a 30,000-foot view of where the money that's coming into the church is going. The downside of this is this bottom thing here. Our net operating income, and that's probably even generous, we don't make enough each month to put into a savings account. We don't make enough each month to put into a capital account. So we're heavily dependent on the generosity of everyone in this room when we want to do something big. You know, it's from you that we get there. And it's like so cool to say this, but even in the past 2 months, we've had two really large legacy donations come in. And we're at the point right now in our savings account that we have $42,000. I think that's the most we've had since day one. Yeah. I feel blessed to be even at this. You know, like Zach said, there was a couple of months where we weren't sure if this would exist as we know it. And to say that we're here now having this problem, this is a great problem to have. We're having, you know, growing pains is a great problem to have. But to get through it, we're going to need your help, and I think Carr's going to come up and talk a little bit about what that may look like.
Thank you, sir. That is amazing. I mean, like Todd said, that $42,000 that's in that savings account now, before we even launched this, before we started talking about this, God placed on two families' hearts in this church to give some substantial gifts. And that lets us know that we're doing what God's asking us to do, because these folks just walked forward and said, hey, we don't know what you need, but we have this, and we want you to have it because we know that God can do amazing things with it. And so that really gives us confidence in what we're doing. So, Pam, if you could go to the next one. So how are we going to go about doing this? First, as we approach anything in this church, this board has been praying for this constantly, and we're going to ask everyone here to really be in prayer about what this looks like for your family, what this looks like for God's family, for this kingdom. And we're going to continue that. As Pastor Zach said earlier, we're going to start our 21 days of prayer. And this is something that we're really going to constantly be praying about, is what can we do to help move the kingdom forward here in this community and here at Cultivate Church. PZ started this year with the greater promise. And we're taking and transitioning that, because we didn't know what that meant in January, but we know what God is revealing to us for that to mean now. And his greater promise in this campaign is going to be the Greater Promise Pledge. And on December 15th, we're going to take pledges. Now, what does that look like? For some folks, they may say, hey, I like these two donations we have already received. Hey, we have money, we want to give it today. For other folks, I want to be a part of this. God's placed it on my heart to give, but I can't really give right now all at once. Because this project is going to take some time, we don't have to pay for everything up front. On the 15th of December, we're just going to ask for your pledge. Can you give? If so, what does that look like for you? And over the next 6 months, can you bring this to fruition for Cultivate? So that's how we're gonna do it. This is an ask over and above, whatever giving you may be giving to Cultivate today. As you saw with Todd's budget there, we do run a pretty tight budget. We don't really bring in 17.5. We spend it. We don't necessarily bring it in. Every December, we usually get some legacy donations, and that kind of helps us with the shortfalls month to month to month. So that's how we get by typically, and we're going to continue to do that. But this would be a gift over and above your normal tithe or your normal monthly giving. And I know that's tough for a lot of folks. That's tough, but that's really how we have to think about this. It's what can we do over and above what you're already giving. We're also going to send letters out. Jen's put some letters together, not only for everyone that's currently calls Cultivate home, but as PZ mentioned earlier, we started at the Red Fez in Lake Wiley 3.5 years ago, and there was a lot of people that were at that location that aren't here today, but they still feel like a part of Cultivate Church. We hear from them. PZ reaches out to them. He stays in touch with folks. And so we're not only going to ask folks that are here actively serving each Sunday and actively worshiping with us each Sunday, but also folks that started Cultivate or have been at Cultivate and feel like they are a part of Cultivate. We're going to go to them and ask them to help us with this too, because many of these people believe in the mission and ministry of Cultivate Church. They might not be here today, but they believe in what this church is doing, and they see what this church is doing and all the great things that we're doing here. So we're gonna reach out to those folks, and we're gonna ask the community too. As PZ, you saw on the slide earlier, feeding 14,000 people, 1,400 people. Yeah. It does sound better, 14,000. We'll get there. We'll get there. 1,400 people. What we're doing in the community recognizes this. Many of you may or may not know this, but when PZ alluded to it, when we started here, it wasn't the warmest welcome in the world. And but now people are like, wow, they really are. This is a part of this community. And so we're going to ask folks in the community, hey, this is what we're doing. This is why we're doing it. Would you like to be a part of it? So those are some of the things we're going to do to try to raise the funds that we need to do. Pam, if you give me the next one. So we broke this down to say, hey, what does this really look like? Because when you say, hey, it's $130,000, that's a big number. And so that's something that's like, okay, that's large. How do we break that up? And this is kind of the way we look at it. So you can see here, we're just showing 51 gifts. So we're saying, okay, can we get 51 gifts? And you can see, not very many people can give at this top level necessarily. But as you go down, hey, every gift helps. Everything goes a long way, and it will help us get to these numbers. So we just kind of broke it down and said, if we can get 20 gifts of $500, if we can get 10 gifts of 1,000, 8 of 3,000, 8 of 5,000, 5 of 10,000 or more, then we get to where we need to be. And so we wanted, wherever you are, if you can give at any of these levels, and even if you can't, everything can help. Pam, if you'll give me the next one too. And there's a lot of different ways to give. We can receive, it just doesn't have to be a check. There's a lot of different ways that we can receive. Sure, a cash donation would be great. But for some people, maybe you have an IRA or something like that, and you're taking your required minimum distributions out of that, and you're saying, hey, I don't really want to pay taxes on this. Like I'm supposed to, but I kind of don't want to. You can give that direct. We can help you facilitate. If anybody wants to do any of these, they can reach out to me or Todd or PZ or anybody on the board, and we can facilitate all of these. You can give directly to Cultivate, directly to this campaign, and we can bypass taxation on that. If you have any other assets that you would like to give, whether it's stocks or anything that's appreciated, and you don't necessarily want to sell it because you don't want to have to pay the taxes on it, you can give that directly to Cultivate. We can facilitate that for you, and that way you would not have to pay taxes on that. We can also take hard assets. We've been a part of capital campaigns before where people gave, they didn't have the cash to give, but they have items that they wanted to donate because they wanted to be a part of it. We've got stamp collections and coin collections and things like that. And you can, those type of things, I mean, those will help. Those things will help, and we can take those and we can facilitate a sale of that and use that for the capital campaign. So there's many ways to give. If you're able and want to be a part of it, there's a lot of ways to do it. And we're confident that as we go throughout this over the next 6-7 months, that we will definitely see this goal achieved. It's going to be amazing to see what God does with this place and what God does through this church. And I am highly confident. I told PZ this. Let's just do it. We're going to get there. This is going to happen. And there's no doubt with any of us on the board or Pastor Zach and anybody in this room, this is going to happen. It's going to be amazing when it does. And I'm just really thrilled that I get to be a part of it. And I hope you guys are too. So we'll take some Q&A if there is any. Yeah. Any questions? I failed. So after tomorrow, next Sunday, but we know we just dropped this. So we're happy to take any and all questions now. But also, if next Sunday, if you have some more or something like that, we'll take some time after service if you want to ask some questions then. And then you can always reach out to me, Todd, Jen. We can reach out to any of us, or through PZ, and we can help answer questions that you may have. So.
Yeah, I guess questions, these guys probably can answer it more of these questions than I can. Yes, sir.
So with the design layout, is there any flexibility or options that would stay in kids, preschool, or baby areas?
We would love that.
Yeah, so this is actually a two-phase plan. So this phase is the initial phase. And then, Pam, can you pull up the picture of the new rendering? The new one.
I do have pictures of the old space if anybody wants to see them.
I put them up here. Yeah, we can show those in a minute. So the grand plan that we have with the building is behind this curtain here. We've got a couple of garage doors. We want to make a traditional side entry of the church. That this would be the front. Maybe we get crazy, throw up a steeple. But entry would turn into here. These chairs are not as to scale as I would have liked them to be. My initial rendering failed. I had to rush through another one. But this will become a lobby. So we've got equal space on the back side of this. This will become a lobby / multi-purpose space that we can expand overflow seating. And this is going to be solely a children's wing when we get to phase 2. So what will happen is you'll enter through here, and if you have kids, you'll go through there to check them in, and then you'll walk out that door when you exit, and that it will be a one-way door. No one in. You have to come through a secured area, and children will be blocked off with the door. The plan is for a size similar to this, slightly larger, new sanctuary that will be built here for the children. This will be a children's sanctuary. Then we'll be able to move the next group here, and then we'll have extra classrooms if we wanted to do Sunday school, preteen space, anything along those lines. But yeah, this is phase 1 of 2 phases. Ultimately, if we can find a contractor that can build it within that budget, we'd pull the trigger on that today too. But we do intend on this becoming the children's wing of the church at some point in the future. That's a great question. So speaking of Matt White, so the plan is, Todd might be able to speak better than I can. At some point, we will have to pave this gravel. But we also have the lot right next to us. This grass lot, that's ours as well. So that will become more parking at some point, probably sooner rather than later. Yeah, we're open to any and all. I know we've talked about a silent auction. We've talked about. Yeah. I know Ruth has talked about potential vendors fair and that type of stuff as well, silent auctions. We're open to any fundraising. I will get body slammed through a table if it means we can get some money. Selfishly, that's a desire that I've got. If anyone wants to cut a check right now, go get the tables. Go get the tables. But no, we're certainly open to any and all fundraising ideas.
Is there a different, can we donate a jersey for you to wear, represent?
You got to get at least into the four figures before I throw a Cowboys jersey on. Okay, that's fair. If your gift is large enough, I'll put whatever jersey on you want. I guess I'll let the board. Mind you, my treasurer is an Eagles fan, so he won't let just anybody throw me in a jersey. Call Todd. He'll tell you if it's a yes or a no. That was the budget that we showed was literally the bare minimum to get the building built. It's no audio upgrades, nothing along those lines. With that building budget, the plan and all of that stuff, that simply covers the cost of the construction. We would love to upgrade audiovisual, but within the budget of what we have to do, so I think Todd again probably could speak, or Carr. The reason we've got to do this in the timeline that we have to do this is because we are in violation of the city's occupancy code right now. So this is a way to appease the city's requirements for the space, but also be forward thinking enough to expand what we need. At some point down the road, obviously you guys know we've had these sound equipments since we were portable and loaded them on and off of trailers for 2.5 years. We will be upgrading at some point, but the budget that we proposed, that we were given from a contractor is not, that does not include that.
Have any of this work been done? I know I mentioned Paul, you said you have to be a licensed contractor. And I'm not being funny, but between Paul and Matt, because Paul is like a jack of all trades. Did any of this work be done by, to help cut down some of that pricing?
That's a tough little question.
Anything that wouldn't be part of the prescriptive permits, we could have some volunteers come in and help. But most of the stuff, if you look across the list, is all permitted activity. It's electrical, it's HVAC, some plumbing, concrete work.
I think demolition's probably the only thing we could even attempt to.
About the demolition, it was like we could cut our.
We had the owner come take a lot of the back out already.
Yeah.
We could probably do some demo. There's definitely an opportunity. I don't think our budget included painting. I think we had offered, we thought we would paint ourselves with some volunteers. There may be some of the drywall work and framing work that we could absolutely look to.
Kind of like this stage is built.
That's right. Where's Lauren? Is Lauren in here still? Okay.
But Paul said that's how, but I know for sure he'll be getting the deal. And I'm not being funny, but
Yeah.
No, any way we can within what we're legally allowed to do, we want to save money. Trey, unfortunately, when we put the new stage up here, you're not going to be allowed to be a part of it anymore. Yeah, no. So the rendering there, the stage will be larger. The reason, so if anyone wants to see the back of the church when we finish this, I'll show you what it looks like now. The reason the stage looks like this is because this is a whole nother room. So what? Okay, Pam's got some pictures of what the church looked like when we moved in. So that's this. That's our sanctuary right here. That's what this used to look like. Those are that's the room right there that's connected to this wall. Another angle from the corner of the back of that room. Now, here we go. This is the real game changer right here. Gosh, that was the dingiest, nastiest carpet. I think it had been here since the 80s. But this, yeah, we transformed most of that lobby within 6 days. So this was quite an undertaking. Yeah, it'll be right back where Jerry and Pam are right now. It's going to be more. It's going to be. It won't be closed in. It'll be open, and that's where we'll be able to do coffee, and potentially what we're hoping to do is donuts and other goods from that space right there. But yeah, that was man. That was, my gosh. Look at my stomach too. That's pre-weight loss. Hallelujah. Next picture, please. So the kids' space too, in case anyone wasn't sure, that kids' space didn't used to be one big room. It used to be 2 small rooms. We closed that in December. But yeah, that's this building when we first moved in. So I'll be happy to take you. Actually, I would encourage all of you to come back there because that is Disaster Relief Central behind us. We've got 17 pallets of water, clothes as far as the eye can see, food, supplies, all sorts of stuff right behind this wall. But you'll be able to see the space we're moving into. It is literally this large. But the stage, back to the original question, the stage won't have to be boxed in because we're not working around a room. So it will be a wider, broader stage. We're going to tap on Greg Davis to help us acoustically because when we built this, he had to help us a lot to make it not sound like we were in the middle of a giant cavern. So we're going to make something that makes a lot more sense. That's what Greg does for a living. Greg is the best in the business at that. So we're gonna smooth out the walls there, but we'll have more room for a band, so you're not sitting on each other's laps during worship. No, you're not getting off the. Come on, Trey. I love you, buddy. I ain't kicking you off publicly. That's a conversation we have with your parents, one-on-one. We'd start yesterday if we had money for it.
We obviously can't start until we kind of understand it, where the funding's going to be. Like Pam, with her question, if we get in more resources than we had planned, then we can do even bigger things than we thought. But we need to start as soon as possible, just because of the zoning and
the city would have preferred we started by last April.
Yeah.
It's been an ongoing.
I just want to say one thing. The really cool thing about how Zach kind of staged this, we can do all of the heavy lifting, most of the big work that needs to happen back there without impacting anything up here. And, hopefully the goal being, least disruption to you guys. When everything's back there, the new HVAC is in, we demo the stage, we open the room up, and, I think we're lucky it is set up this way because we can do it without needing a temporary home while working through these improvements.
You gonna take pledges today?
Sure.
I mean, I can't give you the money today, but I
Yeah.
can pledge a certain amount.
Sure. Yeah. Tony, do you have a question?
Yeah, so in the interim, and as far as it sounds like for the city, they want things to be done, yesterday if they could be. Is there an audible in place in case we just get to that, well, not to hit through growth, get to that growth and say, maybe you split the services to have at least amount of people for each service until we continue to grow and buy some more time to, have the construction done? And then the second thing is, during the demolition process, will we need to split the other smaller groups in the interim until we can come back together as a church?
Yeah, so we've been planning potential move to multi-service if that event occurred since we started talking. And we've looked at all the possibilities between 2 Sunday morning times, a Sunday morning, a Sunday evening, a Saturday evening, a Sunday morning. And I believe what we would do if we reach the point where we need to have multi-service before the building is done is we would probably take consensus as to what works. I know there are a lot of people who work on Sunday mornings and can't make it in, so a Saturday evening might work for them. What we experienced in our Saturday afternoon services at Lake Wiley Christian Assembly was that no one wanted to be there on Saturday afternoon. So ideally it would look like probably a 9 and an 11 on Sunday morning for a short stretch, and we may explore it during the holidays. I know we've got baptisms planned again December 22nd, that last Sunday before Christmas. And that's always a really big service, baptisms and then Christmas itself. So we might explore what multi-service looks like this year and give us a feel for it. We did last Christmas to a lesser extent, but we would do it with more intentionality if this is how it goes. A lot of that, though, is dependent upon volunteers and based upon who can come when. If we do a 9 and 11 and everyone comes at 11, it defeats the purpose. But the other question, I guess, during demolition, temporary site, if we needed it, the YMCA is available, and it's about 2 miles down the road. So we could go to the YMCA if we needed. I've also got relationships with a couple other churches in the area that may be open to letting us use it, but it wouldn't be a Sunday morning time. So the hope is to not disrupt service here at all. And the plan is, if we do miss a Sunday morning, and it is spring, early summer next year when it's finished, my real dream would be to have service at Fountain Park, where we just had the event yesterday, and be able to let people get to know who we are and say, hey, come next week and see our brand new space. Yeah. Yes, sir.
On the plan, is that a lump sum or is that gonna be spread over 6 months or 12 months?
The giving can be, we'd like the giving if you either at lump sum or spread over 6 months. The payments will just be as the contractor dictates that. I don't know that we haven't signed a contract or anything like that. We've worked with we've got these quotes, which you saw here. Todd got a lot of quotes, but this was the most favorable. PZ's talking to some other folks too. So we haven't finalized who we're using and exactly, but this is a really good estimate of what the construction will cost, and then the payment process, we haven't finalized that yet. But our expectation would be over time, not all at once. Yeah.
On the church app, will there be a building fund
Yes.
option?
Should be a legacy option now, right?
There's already a legacy out
Okay, I just do like the whatever option.
So it's like a little
That's a
drop
great
down.
one, the whatever option.
In that app, that's a great question, because I think that's really important for people to know. Like, because in that on the app, when we were taking money for Western North Carolina, there was a drop down. You could give if you wanted to give
relief.
directly to the relief. And there's another, so there'll be a drop down. There'll be a drop down there for legacy too. So there was a.
We're just glad you're using the app now.
Yeah, most of our giving comes that way. We haven't set the legacy up on there yet, though, have we?
I think
It's on there. Okay, all right, it's there. I'm wrong. It's there.
So if we put it in general, could some of that be used to legacy, or does that go to like the feeding the neighborhood and stuff like that?
If it goes in general, we put it in the operating budget. and
Which
then
goes to
we'll
feed the
use
neighborhood
it,
and all
yeah.
that.
Legacy. Yeah, it would be
Yeah.
legacy. Yeah, it says legacy. That's how we take year-end gifts usually too, and that's what you see in that savings account. Yeah. Yeah, thank you.
If anyone has any plans for a fundraiser or ideas, I am all ears. We haven't officially planned anything. Nothing has taken place in terms of what's next or what we're doing. This was the first step to show you guys what the plan is for the church. As a nonprofit, we're a 501c3 nonprofit. We are transparent with our giving, with our spending. And so before we make a decision like this that is dependent on giving, we needed to present it to you guys so you guys could see what it is that we're intending to do.
Mr. Catton.
Yes, sir.
Question about this lease. At the end of the 5-year lease, is it written options to buy, or it would be negotiated, or what?
So it would be based on
He gets
appraised
that.
value.
The way it's written in the lease, it's based on appraised value, but the way commercial buildings appraise is based on the income they produce. We know the amount of income in the lease because we have a tiered schedule, an escalated schedule over the next 5 years. So I can pretty confidently say within about $10,000 to $15,000 what that number is going to be, and it's a really good number for this building.
Significantly lower than market.
So at the end of our lease, in 3.5 years, we sink 1.25, 1.5, what it ends up being. The building will be worth more. The owner, he or she, will say, hey, they're on the hook. What's going to happen?
No, the property value won't increase because it's based off of,
Correct. When you do an appraisal on a commercial building that is rented, the vast majority of that appraisal is based on the income the property produces. That's a fixed amount. We know what that is. So when we run that appraisal, as long as interest rates don't get any worse, we could say with a pretty high degree of confidence what the building number is going to be, and is what we're paying in rent, correct? Which we know that's a fixed number. So yeah,
It's a great
I
question.
suspect we'll probably our purchase option will be at least $300,000 to $400,000 under true market value. Yeah. No, it's up
no,
to
they don't change the price.
Yeah, the landlord. It is a commitment in the lease that the landlord is obligated to fulfill. Yeah.
And we have also looked at that point in time, because we're buying the building, there are companies that give loans to churches for purchases, and where we probably couldn't necessarily get it from like Bank of America or something like that, but there are facilities out there that donate to churches. It's their mission and their ministry is to donate to churches, and we've talked to that, and
They tend to come in under market interest rate. They're faith-based organizations. Larger churches donate to the fund so smaller churches can get loans. So the interest rate will be lower than a conventional interest rate, and the property value will be lower because
of how it's
Todd was a magician with this lease. I'll just be honest. We couldn't, when Todd called and told us that we've got a building that we could potentially lease, I asked him the price, and he said, this is what it is. And I said, ask him if he'll take $1,000 less. We can't afford it. And he did, and without hesitation, he said yes. Dan, yeah, right? Dan is an incredible landlord, the guy that owns this building. He and his brother have owned this building since they built it in '78. And he has been very generous with the amount of help he's given us in rent, and they have just been more than helpful with all of the conversations we've had long term. He was just here 2 weeks ago, and he and I had a conversation about the purchase, and they're already planning as if the building will not be theirs in a few years. So there's no hang up on his end of letting it go. He's excited to see it bless us.
Two more questions. I think the lady asked, but I couldn't hear about parking.
Yep.
we own this lot over here. Yeah.
Yeah,
We
that
own
lot
this lot
next to
over
us
here.
is ours too.
Yeah.
Is there any plans to gravel it, develop it, whatever?
I mean, not in this budget, but that would be great. Yeah.
Can you walk over here?
Yeah.
I know, at least I was across the street.
Street. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's, they mind us walking over there?
We've got permission from all of our neighbors to be across the street. We had to have it when we got the building from the city because we didn't have enough. You remember when we moved here, that was grass. That's right.
Yeah.
You killed the grass. That's right. So we had to have permission from the neighboring businesses to use their parking. So they don't mind, but ideally we will pave that or gravel that lot as well.
The last question is, as far as the code enforcement, how much pressure are they putting on us right now? You know, are they breathing down our neck, or will they be happy when they see we finally got something in motion?
So the fire marshal himself was not the one that was upset. It was the city planner. And the city planner was upset that because of the changes to the building and the occupancy area, he wanted immediate change. We've talked enough to where by the time our next inspection comes in April of next year, when we can present them that we have a contract and intent to go, things will be all right. We've already let them know that we've been in conversations trying to plan. We just haven't been able to plan. You know, part of what frustrated them was that the gentleman that started this project didn't pull a permit and quit halfway through the project. So Lauren and Mike and myself, Paul, the stage wall. Yeah, the gentleman that started this project took our money and he left and didn't pull a permit. So that was part of what the reason that they had frustration was, is that we didn't pull this, even though it's not technically required. They wanted to be in the know. So now they are in the know of what our plans are moving forward. So it's not they're not showing up tomorrow and shutting us down, but they want to know what the plan is by next year's inspection. What's that? No,
We're not
no,
paying
we've
it.
not been threatened with any fines.
Yeah.
We'll make their fine payments tax deductible.
No. All is welcome. Thank you.
Would it be okay if we as a church came together and prayed over you all and the board before we leave today?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that'd be great.